for Ken and Beryl, this is a place they have created between them for their shared pleasure and contentment. They can look out across the gentle curves and undulations of their garden and cast their minds back to 1976, when all this was a level patch of open field amongst the greenery of Wirral. They can reflect on their own story of how their dreams and imaginings became a reality. However, no matter how great the imagination and how fine the vision, there comes a time when sheer, hard, physical work is needed to make it all a reality. And so began the task of transforming a shapeless open space into a personal and individual landscape. It wouldn't be fair to claim that every spadeful of soil was moved by hand. Turning the excavations from the pond into a rough mound alongside was a job better carried out by a mechanical digger. But it was hard work with the spade that shaped that mound into a carefully contoured hill. The original site was very open and exposed to the wind, so the planting of trees was a vital first step to provide the shelter. As these grew, it was possible to plant an increasing variety of shrubs and plants, which could include quite tender species. The practical need to provide nature's own windbreaks meant that the garden almost evolved like a natural landscape. And it is the feeling of a landscape in miniature that strikes the visitor who first enters the garden. Here is a garden where you can make your own choices as you wander. You are tempted in so many directions. And here is the art of keeping things hidden from the eye, an influence from Japanese garden design. In fact, although you wouldn't think of a Japanese garden when looking at this very English scene, they have a lot in common. Here is that same place of refuge, that same chance to get away from everyday stresses, that same created world which imitates the hills, the valleys, the rocks, and the water of the bigger world outside. The sights and feel of this garden are an inspiration to anyone who sees it. Some time ago, their brother-in-law put his thoughts about it into a poem.
The smooth earth gently moulded into curves, a stream with bridges, serpentine concealed, and then a swirling hedge line that reserves a further picture yet to be revealed. And now we view the garden you have made, our eyes contained, yet freed and entertained by gentle contours, and a rich brocade of blossoms by your wise invention trained.
The garden has been many years in the making. For 15 years there was that patient looking forward to the time when Ken and Beryl could say, "This is it. This is what we had in mind all those years ago when we set out with just an open field." That is surely the ultimate contentment.
And those creative years of yours have won for us a rich familial memory of football, croquet, golf and badminton, of love and laughter's coloured tapestry. We thank you, Ken, for all the joy you give through flowers and trees from many distant lands that you have sown and planted here, to live and blossom through your skilled and patient hands.
Occasionally, you come across a garden where you can step into a rather special world. A world often with its roots in nostalgia. A world where we can, literally, take on a whole new dimension. This garden in Wirral has all the appearances of a neat, cleanly laid out design. But it has something rather more. This railway was laid out to be very much a part of its surroundings. The lines follow the contours of the lawn and other features so that anyone stepping into the garden would hardly notice. For the technical, this is a G-scale narrow-gauge railway. For the romantics, it is a chance to change the viewpoint and become immersed in scenes from another age. We can even take the ultimate step for anyone who has ever looked at such a miniature world and longed to be part of it. We can shrink ourselves to a few inches and jump on board. Now the world becomes a whole new exciting place. What was just a garden a few moments ago is now a great expanse, an unexpected world waiting to be discovered. The creator of all this, of course, has to be every child's favourite uncle. But how many adults could, in all honesty, fail to let their imagination take flight in a garden like this? What is it about this garden which arouses such very special affection among so many visitors? Arley Hall has long been a place of the family, created by the family. Where other such estates would count on the grand visions of professional landscapers, Arley Gardens have been shaped by the family itself. And it is probably this very individual layout, expressed by successive generations, which strikes a chord with ordinary visitors. Visitors who have themselves probably shaped and evolved their own gardens without the help of professional designers. Arley reflects something of each generation within its garden boundaries. But one figure stands out as the inspiration behind so much of what we see today. Roland Isles Egerton Warburton was 9 years old when he inherited the estate. He grew up to be a person of many parts and many talents, a poet, architect, agriculturalist, and a wise, kindly and humorous man. Quite a catch for any eligible young lady in the county. And in 1831, that good fortune fell to Mary Brooke of nearby Norton Priory. I am to be married to Mr. Warburton, the very last person I have thought would have got so soon into this scrape. But it was no scrape. If any marriage had been made in heaven, then this was surely the one. Among the first tasks to face the young couple was to choose a site for the new house. Roland and Mary had their own way of checking the merits of each possible view.
If thou wouldst a form behold, cast in nature's fairest mould, every virtue there enshrined, which a husband's heart can find.
No better site was found, and the new house was built on the old foundations. An earlier driveway to the house was changed to a gravel terrace, which divided the garden from the park. This was known as the Furlong Walk, a stretch for which Roland clearly grew to have some affection. The main drive was redirected to lead through an avenue of pleached lime trees and under a clock tower to form a grand and almost theatrical entrance to the new house. The famous herbaceous border already existed when Roland inherited the estate. It was originally called the alcove walk. The term herbaceous border to describe a collection of perennial plants was not yet in use. It is thought that this was the first such border in England. The 18th century pavilion, which was extended and decorated by Roland, is still the focus of an ever-changing display throughout each summer. As if to create a timeless picture of simple rural life, the tea cottage nestles in its own quiet corner of the garden. It is quite easy to conjure up images of the tea parties which would have spread across these lawns at another time. But nowadays it is something inside the cottage which evokes the memories of friends and neighbours from long ago. The plaques embedded in the walls come from the tower of Arley Hall before it was demolished. They carry verses by Roland, not only in honour of his wife, but also of his neighbours on 7 nearby estates. They capture feelings which are sometimes light-hearted and sometimes poignant. Here there is almost a living presence of Roland and his sensitive regard for the world and the people around him. One of the most distinguishing features of Arley is this avenue of unusually clipped quercus ilex or home oak trees. Roland planned the avenue, but he didn't plan the cylindrical shapes we see today. During the First World War, the trees suffered some neglect and became so tall that they needed a severe lopping. And so a gardener's problem was turned into a feature which now attracts attention far and wide. Throughout their years together, Roland and Mary saw the garden develop into one of the most outstanding in the north of England. What they created was very much the garden we can see today. The distinguished garden artist George Elgood painted several watercolours of it. Too late, however, to be seen by Roland, whose sight had by now failed him. This happiest of marriages stretched out for 50 years, and in preparation for their golden wedding day, Roland had an inscription engraved on an anniversary bracelet.
Each of 10 the eldest born, wedded on an April morn, 50 summers past and gone, golden decades every one, joined by God in holy love, blessed with blessings from above. Unto him our thanks we pay on our golden wedding day.
But Mary was never to see that special day. Her untimely death robbed them of a day of great celebration. Now, Roland was to face the coming years without that kindred spirit who had brought so much to Arley. Roland lived another 10 years. In spite of his blindness, he continued to take an active part in the management of the estate.
As on my way a friendly arm I need, to guide my steps, lest they some peril meet, some snare encounter as I onward speed. My soul a guide in its Redeemer hath. Lord, be thy word a lantern to my feet, a light to guide me on my heavenward path.
Roland and Mary are surely an example to any generation in their unfailing zest for life and their devotion to each other. Their years together have become a legacy which now reaches out to people who never knew them. It is not difficult to sense their qualities, which still live on in this most personal of large gardens. And so the journey of discovery could go on and on. The plants can be fascinating. The scenes they create can be stunning. But the real discovery? No. If we analyse too much, we could lose the magic. Perhaps we should take a lesson out of the child's book. Don't probe too deeply.